One was this blackout was being led by the music industry. Who the I told you guys I have a real issue with the fact that black people are overly influenced and overly led by musicians and singers and rappers and dancers and all this other stuff, and I just think it makes you kind of weak. Honestly, it really does. It makes you look kind of silly. And second of all, they mentioned Black Lives Matter. I don't trust the leadership of Black Lives Matter. It's a lot like the ADOS movement. The ADOS movement was a great concept. We were all like, yeah, this sounds really good. You know, it's like eating at your favorite restaurant because you know they're like, oh, we got fried chicken. You're like, oh, I love fried chicken. But then you find out what they're putting in the food. You find out who's cooking the food, you know, who's running this restaurant. And you're like, oh, shit, I'm not going to eat here no more. Right. So that's what happened with ADOS. When people started seeing how nasty and vicious Yvette Carnell and Tone were and how they were attacking black people left and right, Dr. Claude Anderson, Louis Farrakhan, just attacking all these black people, Pan-Africanism, people are like, what is wrong with you? And the same thing is true with Black Lives Matter. When I found out about the George Soros funding, the heavy LGBT agenda, no disrespect to my LGBT brothers and sisters, but I'm not interested in trying to encourage as many black people to be gay as possible. Like, I'm not interested in that. I just lost trust for Black Lives Matter. So here's my point. I think that what you're seeing right now is a massive insurrection that was well organized, orchestrated by people that only care about George Floyd's death to the extent that they were able to utilize that as a catalyst to pursue a different agenda. I think the black protesters that are starting to confront, the white people that want to loot and burn shit down, I applaud them. I applaud you for doing that. It's just kind of because what's been created now is you have martial law. Now, shit gonna get real. Now tanks are going to be rolling down the street. Armored vehicles will be rolling down the street. Motherfuckers with machine guns and slave dogs are going to be coming up and down your street, and it's about to get messy. So, I'm not really interested in that, So, I'm canceling all of that. I think that there's other ways to kind of deal with this issue. I don't really know if I'm interested in declaring war on the entire U.S. federal government and to destroy every single thing about our society. I just don't really know if that's something that interests me. I don't think it interests most black people. I get it. I understand. Okay, you're into your socialist, communist, leftist agenda. That's what an Antifa is all about. That's what, a lot of the democratic socialists are all about. But y'all are a bunch of fucking fascists too. Like, you can't claim to have war against fascism when you are the fucking fascist. Like, you're running around here policing people's speech, telling people what they can and can't do, can and can't say, calling black people homophobic and trying to push forward this fucking gay agenda, shove it down people's throats, push forward the Me Too movement, all this other nonsense. Like, I'm not down with that. I don't enjoy that at all. I don't think most black people are interested in all of that, So I'm just going to say that in general, I thought about it a lot, and I'm just not real interested in a lot of what I'm seeing. I just think that a lot of it is not cool. I'm looking at some of your questions. Let's see, an end of the world, start a new one. To the end of I don't want to end the world. I just want to fix it. Like, I want to make things better, but I'm not trying to destroy all society and burn everything down. And I just don't. I didn't wake up thinking about that today. See, we can't be heard when we're trying to speak if we're using violence. You cannot represent people and say that. You know what? I think, honestly, I feel like the violence, not the violence. I'm not a fan of the violence. But, I'm okay with every now and then somebody burning something down or busting a window or two to make a point. But I think that what bothers me is the people doing it are not black people. The people doing it are people who are taking advantage of black people. They're the people who are showing up to these protests uninvited. You know, you have a protest in Detroit, and it's full of all these people that came in on a damn bus who are there systematically busting windows and burning buildings down and trying to run over cops. Like, that to me is sinister. That's like, okay, you're just moving in under a cover. You know, you're using us for cover. That's what it is. You're using us for cover, and I don't support that. What's your strategy? My strategy is I believe deeply in building. I believe deeply that we should do these basic things. Educate our own children, create our own jobs, support black businesses, police our own communities. Cops that go in a community should be from that community, and I believe that many of those cops should be black. It's a big problem when the vast majority of the police in a situation are white, and the people sitting on the side of powerlessness are the black people. So so that's my 4-point agenda right there. And then you throw reparations in there as well. I think there should be a conversation about reparations. You know, and also you can't ignore the economic angle of this in terms of understanding the importance of economic strength and having an economic base when it comes to managing the politics of your community. George Floyd, you know, if he was a black man who owned a business who was with 3 other black men who owned businesses, I don't think, and then they got lawyers on deck. They got, you know, money in the bank that they can hire lawyers and fight back. I don't really think that situation would have occurred. I don't think cops are quick to go after black men who are truly positioned for power. You know, if you really are for real about it, first of all, he was high. He was on fentanyl. You know, and he looked high. I saw it, and instantly when I saw it, I said, okay, he's high, drunk, something like that. Something ain't right. You know, and I'm not dissing people who use alcohol and drugs, but I've told you guys, black men need to watch out for that shit. Malcolm X said, the white man will sell you the liquor bottle and then he'll lock you up because you're drunk. I'm not a big fan of black men going out just being high and drunk and just being out there like that. You know, if the thing was about the fake $20 bill is true, you know, I personally think as black men, I don't really know. I'm not judging his financial scenario. You can't get mad at somebody for struggling financially. That's not the point. The point is to say that while I won't get mad at you for struggling financially, I will challenge you if you're blowing opportunities to actually build wealth for yourself or your community. That's why I say for black men, why are you more interested in buying shoes than you are in buying stock? Or when I see a brother who is bragging about how he just bought this fancy new car, but he's not talking about buying a home for his wife and his children. You know, to me, that's not a man. That's a man who has not evolved. That's an immature man. So I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about George Floyd because he's dead, you know, and I don't want to talk about the dead like that. But I will say, I think as black men, there is such a thing as minimizing your vulnerabilities. It doesn't mean that you aren't still a victim if someone does something to you, right? Like if I go out in the alley and I'm half drunk and I pass out drunk in the alley and I got $300 in my pocket and somebody steals my $300, yeah, I'm still a victim. I was still robbed. The criminal still bears responsibility for what happened. But here's what's going to happen when I go back to my household. When I go back to my household and talk to my mother and my father, they're going to say, well, why was your stupid ass drunk in an alley with a pocket full of money anyway? What were you thinking? You know, if you keep doing that, then your dumb ass is going to keep getting robbed because predators are always out there. You know, so I think that for black men, you got to understand predators are always out there. The killers are always out there. The people that want you dead or in jail are always out there. Why not minimize your vulnerability? Why do you work so hard to make yourself an easy target? That's where I think we can challenge black men, because I'm going to just tell you like this. People talk about these fucking allies. I watch Angela Rye on CNN, talking, and Chris Cuomo said something to her, like, me and Angela don't have the best of history. Y'all know, I don't know if y'all know about the whole weird thing that happened with Angela. She's been mad at me for about 3 years now. I guess I hit a sore spot, but either way, if she didn't want that to happen, she shouldn't have been such a bitch to all the people that we met in Oklahoma City. I was really disappointed in her behavior in Oklahoma City. I said, you're arrogant, you're mean, you hurt people's feelings. I think that's bullshit. Like, you're not such a goddamn celebrity that you can't respect the people that are paying you $10,000 to give a fucking speech. Saying I don't take any of it back at all. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything in public, because as soon as I said something about it publicly, I get hit up by Charlemagne. I didn't realize her and Charlemagne were like this, and so that caused issue, like, with me and him a little bit. Not to the point where we're not friends. We're still cool, but it made things complicated. And that's why I'm not really interested in being in the celebrity space, because black people are fascinated with fucking being celebrities and being around celebrities. The problem with that is that when you get in that space, you can't critique people without somebody calling you on the phone because they think they got some influence. Like, oh, well, I know Boyce Watkins. I'm going to call him. I'm going to get him to take the article down. And then they'll call me and be like, hey, Boyce, I'm friends with so-and-so, and he wanted to know if you can, take that article down. I'll be like, no, I'm not taking the article down. Like, no, like, why would I do that? Like, no, just deal with it. Like, I don't like what you said. That don't mean I don't like you, but deal with it. So I don't like being in that space because it's very incestuous. It's not, so just like for full transparency, like one thing that happened when I went to UCLA, I was supposed to speak at UCLA. I was invited to speak. I didn't really care if I go. I don't go to campuses that much because campuses are run by liberal white people. Liberal white people don't like me very much. And so I was going to UCLA to speak because I got asked to speak by somebody from the Black Alumni Association. So I was all the way in Guyana. I flew all the way from Guyana to LA, which took like the entire day for this thing to happen. And I get there and they canceled me basically because Angela Rye, I was going to be on a panel with Common and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or something like that. And Angela Rye literally, from what I was told, had basically said, if you bring Boyce Watkins on, then Common isn't coming, right? And so Common is more of a mainstream celebrity than I am. I'm not mainstream at all. And so that literally led them to cancel the whole, and I didn't care about not being on the panel. I could give two fucks about speaking at UCLA. Fuck UCLA. I was annoyed that you took me away from my family and I came 10,000 miles across the damn planet to be here, and you wasted my goddamn time. And so, long story short, I feel like we need to kind of evolve in terms of stop. First of all, stop listening to celebrities. I know a lot of them, they're full of shit. Not all of them, but a lot of them are out of touch, all of that. Number two, they're just not gonna really understand certain things because they live in a whole different world. Like you don't know what it's like to live in a world. A lot of you may not. I hope maybe you will one day, but if you're living in a world where people are paying you $20,000 to go speak for 45 minutes, most people don't live in that world. So long story short, it's a different reality I think they're seeing. And so, so I was sitting there watching the CNN thing, and Angela Rye's on there with Chris Cuomo. And Chris Cuomo, this white motherfucker, is basically like, he literally is like, he's like, until regular people, until everyday Americans, quote, read white people, right, be saying white people, until everyday Americans really see this as their problem, until everyday Americans can connect to what black men are going through and police brutality, then nothing's gonna change. I mean, he said we can have all the Angela Ryes that we can, but until everyday Americans decide it's a priority, then nothing's gonna change. And she was like, yeah, and we need our allies to really understand the importance of aligning on this issue, right? So I was listening to her, right? And so I didn't like that because I said, this is interesting because what you're doing actually is you're promoting white supremacy. A lot of people don't understand that just because you're a fucking liberal, that doesn't mean you're not a white supremacist. The biggest white supremacists in America, in my view, are actually black people. Because White supremacy is a two-way street. He has to believe, he might or might not believe he's superior to you. But if you believe he's superior to you, then white supremacy works, because you're always going to give deference and preference to the white man. You're going to, when your children are little, you're going to say, I could educate my children on my own, but I think I need to send them to white people to be educated, because that's going to make them a better human being. You know, when they get older and they come home and they brag about what job they got. You got one cousin who says, hey, mama, I started my own business. They're like, oh, you started your own business because you couldn't get a job. And the other cousin is like, hey, mama, I got a job working at IBM. And they're like, oh, shoot, oh, that's so cool. That's dope. Or somebody gets a record deal or they get put on TV. White people put them on TV. White people give them a Pulitzer Prize. Like, watch MSNBC and notice how many like white-owned credentials the Negroes on MSNBC are sporting when they come on there that legitimizes their presence on the network. I'm not dissing their credentials. I'm not saying, because I have a PhD myself and I went to the Ohio State University. So, you know, I'm not saying that that makes you a terrible person. But here's what I will say, though. You're overweighting validation that is created and owned by white people. When somebody can create a validation that you utilize to define your self-worth, that's like you giving me the right to print motherfucking money. That's like you giving me the right to print money. Seriously, think about it. How many times do we cheer because some Negro got an Oscar? Oh my God, that's the first black man to ever get an Oscar. That's the first black woman. Oh, they got the Academy Award, or they got a Grammy, right? Do you understand that these awards are made up? Like, they made up read it, how the Jews invented Hollywood. They talk about where the Oscars came from. The Oscars were an invention they made up because they were like, damn, we don't want to pay these actors any more money, so let's create some bullshit award so that we can feed their egos instead of feeding their bank accounts, right? So when you allow the person to create something that then becomes valuable to you, you're letting it's almost like printing money. Like I can print a currency that has real value to you, that gives me the ultimate power of a god. If I can print money and you value that money, you'll never be richer than me, because I printed the shit. I'm printing the shit, and you only get as much money as I decide to give you. So a lot of black folks don't understand the trap that you fall into. That's why I said the solution to white supremacist systems, in my opinion, is to build a better system. The solution to white supremacy, in my opinion, for black people, is to just get out of the building. Like, don't try to play the game. Don't try to say, oh, I'm going to go into this white-owned organization and prove to these white people I'm as good as them. And then they're going to be forced to give me promotions and raises and validate me. And they don't got to do shit. All they got to do is be like, oh, you won the game this time? Well, fuck shit. No, let's change the rules, right? You know how it is. As soon as y'all start winning the game, they change the fucking rules, right? So the solution is not to try to go into a rigged game and win the game. The solution is to evacuate the game and to say, no, we're not going to play on your court and we're not going to play your game.